we know that England were very good against Spain last night. I suppose the question is, how good?
How good, excellent. Especially first half. I think that the way that you looked at the game and when you cast your eye back to Wembley when Spain came back to win the game, it was going to be a very difficult night. I think everybody expects a very difficult night. What we didn't expect was a masterclass performance in the first half by defensively sound, solid, all 11 as a unit, and then using the tactics that Gareth set out, executed brilliantly by the team to play counter-attacking football, to get Raheem Sterling and Rashford running in behind, Harry Kane holding it up, and really playing in behind what was a very poor defensive Spain, particularly by the fact that the manager just left the two centre-halves, and often on the counter-attack it was 3v3, in some cases 3 England players versus 2. And the quality of the final ball and the quality of the finish is what really impressed me. All 3 of them were quality, all 3 goals were quality.
Would you echo those sentiments, Liam?
100%. I thought it was an absolutely outstanding performance, and it excites me for the future. And what I really liked was it was brave. The players were brave, not only in... The reason that they were 3v2 high up the pitch is because they were willing to leave Rashford and Sterling and go and press the ball high up the pitch. Spain couldn't play out. Spain were kicking the ball off the pitch after 20 minutes because England went and engaged them. And what the reason they played out from the back was they were able to position themselves to go and counter-press the ball. It's absolutely outstanding performance. And the first goal for me is one of the best England goals I've seen over the last 20 years. The fact we keep possession, be patient, go back to the goalkeeper, open the spaces, play through, allow Spain to press us, and then use that space to go and exploit and score a wonderful goal. And it just summed up an absolutely fantastic performance.
Maybe because of previous, Matthew, but there does seem to be a problem with praising England in some quarters. But is there nothing wrong with saying what we saw last night was absolutely exceptional?
It was excellent. It was very good. For me, in a funny kind of way, the World Cup was more significant because that's when the pressure is at its maximum. The whole nation was watching, and our players, a young team, played with verve, with spontaneity. They were creative. They weren't characterised by the fear that has held back excellent England squads in the past. We've had very good players who haven't been able to combine effectively under pressure. So for me, Spain is a continuation of an already strong narrative, but the key thing is not to become complacent.
And
that can be a
shootout.
And they won at the World Cup.
Yes.
And the World Cup.
And that's significant.
That's very significant.
Which is a massive millstone
massive
from around the net.
I mean, they nearly didn't, and one ought to acknowledge that.
Pickford did it, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and that's another thing, by the way. You talked about bravery. Pickford made an error last night that could easily have led to a goal for Spain. But afterwards, Southgate said, you know what, if you want to encourage players to take risks, and it is a risk playing out from the back, you want players to do things that is quite nerve-wracking to do, you can't then hammer them for making the occasional mistake. And I think he's created an environment of psychological safety where the players can actually express themselves. And I think too many England managers in the past have been so risk-averse that it has stifled the attacking dynamism of their teams.
Pickford has no nerves.
Sam, do you think, had you still been an England manager or any tenure as England manager, would you have been as brave?
No, probably not. Not with as many youngsters as he's taken the risk to put in. Probably not. No.
That's interesting.
I think that you would have tried to pick the players in form and in most form at the particular clubs at the time, and I wouldn't have had the same knowledge. But I would have taken advice off Gareth because Gareth had a lot, and Steve had a massive amount of information on the 21s and the younger players, which would have been filtered through to you. And you may have ended up with players in there by the fact that other players had fallen out of favour at their club or injuries may have happened, and I would have asked Gareth, who do we put in? You know, let's put one of your guys in and let's see how he does, like you mean. But all what he's done in terms of such a short period of time and how many youngsters he's put in, has been a very brave decision, and it's very pleasing to see that he stood up to the pressures of the media and social media by being brave enough to do that. And it's paid off because the players have gone out and performed for him, particularly in the World Cup, as Matthew said. They overcame that fear that we saw when they lost against Iceland. We didn't see that fear. Yeah. We didn't see that trepidation that they showed in that game. We saw a team that wanted to go out and try and win a game of football in every game of football and cope with the pressure quite well. And certainly the system that they chose for that World Cup served them well up to a point, particularly probably in the last game
I'll
against
just throw
France.
something in on that, because you mentioned that Southgate has dealt with the negativity that can come from the media, and it can sometimes be serial negativity. I think it's worth saying, I know it's probably not a great thing to say in a debate about leadership and management, but the key people in football are the players. And if you look at the level of shrill negativity that Raheem Sterling, for example, has had to endure to go out and score 2 goals, you look at Rashford, who's also put up with really serious, severe criticism. I think
Well,
that
what is
took...
he, 20?
Yeah, but
He's
that
only
takes
20.
courage. Great courage
I mean-
to do what they did, and I think we should salute... I mean, Southgate's created an environment where they're prepared to do what they did, but I think we should acknowledge and salute that.
In fairness, though, that is part of the
Yeah,
job
sure.
of a professional footballer, being able to deal with that. You're not going to change that.
Yeah,
That's not
it's
going to
part-
change.
But should we not acknowledge the fact that, you know, it's not just... I mean, you go and watch a golf competition, and every single player is applauded politely. There's a level of
Different
decorum.
mentality,
It's a
different sport.
different culture, but it is difficult for a young person to go onto a field of play, to have 10, 20, 30,000 people screaming abuse at them, making obscene gestures, to take it in the neck from the press. I think even though that is part of the subculture of football, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
No.
But shouldn't we acknowledge what a great performance it was from Sterling and Rashford in that context?
I would say it was nigh on impossible. I'll be interested to think, you know what you think. Nigh on impossible to pick a man of the match last
wasn't,
night
and
because they were all so excellent. And I'd put the manager forward for man of the match award as well.
I'd say Eric Dier.
Yeah. Busquets.
Let's get on to your... Come on, Sam.
Well, look, we might as well cut to the chase straight away.
Sorry for spoiling your script.
Now,
It is a debate, though. You know what I mean?
What you're...
Liam first.
Sorry, Liam.
No,
Sorry.
not at all. What you're seeing at the moment is a group of players enjoying the way they play. And when you look at the players that are playing in that team at the moment, even the likes of Harry Winks coming in, and I always talk about principles and identity, right? So you look at Gareth Southgate, he comes in with England, he wants to take the ball, he wants to counter press. You look at the top 4 teams where most of our England players come from, they all play the same way. Sterling with Guardiola, Winks and Dier midfield were absolutely outstanding. They're able to come and slot in because look at Ross Barkley's resurgence under Sarri, playing exactly the same principles and style of football. And what you're seeing now is our young players are not only benefiting from their club managers playing a certain way, but Gareth Southgate has kind of assimilated that style of play and made it his own with England. So you're seeing, likes of Sterling, his performance yesterday is what he does every week at Man City. And that's what we want to see. But it's not a coincidence that that's happening now because we're playing with the same principles and identity as our top clubs.
Was the performance in Spain better than any performance during the World Cup?
One off 100%.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
100%.
I think so.
I think the performance was better, but the context is very, very different.
I mean,
World Cup
it's not the same
No.
level of competition, which is what we've... You know, England always were very good. I mean, under Roy, I think they won every game. Qualifying. You know what I mean? So, with always, the problem seemed to be is, and I've watched many an England game where we've been in tournaments where it all began where we were good enough, but failed on sometimes in the quarter-final a refereeing decision or we missed a penalty, and that was the defining thin thread we were treading. And then all of a sudden we went even farther back than that, and now we've reasserted ourselves and we've got more of these young players playing regularly in the Premier League. I mean, the key to all this is that here we sat in this studio with Sky with this monster next to the international team, and that monster is the Premier League. You know, and all the owners here are saying, you know, this is, and nearly all foreign owners, this is more important than this. And that's what Gareth has to fight with. That's what us England managers all have to fight with, because only 30% of that Premier League are English players. So the size of the selection process is getting smaller. So these youngsters coming through is a major achievement by everybody in football at the moment, that we've got to try and progress not only just at Premier League but also international level, and let's hope he can carry on keeping developing where he's going.
But it's been a process. Behind the Premier League, the FA have introduced the England DNA. Dan Ashworth had a huge part to play in that, and now what you're seeing is under-20s win the World Cup, under-17s win the World Cup. You watch these teams play, they'll play the same way. So they come through a system where they already understand what's expected of them. That's why they can call up Jadon Sancho. That's why they'll be able to call up, definitely, without a doubt, Phil Foden will come in at some point. He's an absolutely outstanding footballer, but he fits into the philosophy of play. And that's why when you have synergy and you have your under-8s playing the same way as your first team. You have more and more players understanding their roles within not the system, but the principles of play, and be able to adapt like they did last night. They went from 4-3-3 to 5-4-1, 3-5-2 at the World Cup. You've got players now who are brave enough to take the ball. I see Pickford trying to play out. I see centre-halves like Gomez playing at Liverpool the same way he's playing in England, taking the ball from the back, resting in possession. It was absolutely outstanding, and I'm excited because I can see it happening further down the line.
I agree. Personally, I'm hugely excited. I'm
sceptical, Jeff.
I'm not sceptical. I don't understand the negativity.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't understand it. I thought England were absolutely fabulous last night, and I've spoken to Sam before about England performances. Very realistic. I mean, you were waxing lyrical then. You named 10 positives there. It's a sensational thing.
Well, let's go forward from this. There was doubt when we lost to Spain, and then there was some negatives about Croatia. We were playing with no fans. How would you expect to? It's bizarre. I mean, you can't criticise a player in the performance against Croatia because there's nobody there. There's nobody there to lift them. There's no atmosphere. Players survive on atmosphere. They survive on the buzz that makes their hair stand up on their arm and on the back of the neck.
It was weird.
And it's an empty stadium. And, well, you've got to be professional and make sure you do it properly. It's impossible to do that. Psychologically, it's impossible to make the players play to the level that they play with a full stadium. No matter who it is, it's impossible.
Agree with that, but I mean, it was the same for both teams, obviously.
Well, how good were they? They weren't much better.
No, I agree. But you know, the monster of the
it's a nothing game because there's no atmosphere. There's no atmosphere coming through the TV. Never mind when you're on the pitch.
The other thing that's interesting as well was to get these performances, and that performance Gareth got last night, ahead of the two games. He said, I find it staggering that the Premier League started on August the 10th, when it did, compared to the other leagues in the world. Is he got more than a point there?
More than a point. Totally. I mean, I was always under the impression that it was compulsory to have 3 weeks off. Absolutely compulsory.
It's, well, as I understand it...
That's what I thought. I mean, now, if you ask a player to come back sooner, he's not going to say no.
No.
I mean, he's not going to turn
Do you think
the
it
manager
should
down.
be compulsory?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you're threatening so many more injuries through fatigue, mental and physical fatigue. That's why we've finally got the break in January.
Well, that was
because the figures from our country from January onwards compared to Europe when they have a break are staggeringly higher than them.
So that shouldn't go under the radar, because I know this is an area you've written a lot, Matthew. Gareth Southgate said, I'm just concerned about the psychological effects, the mental fatigue for the players after the World Cup to have such a short break.
But, I mean, there is a basic structural paradox at the heart of English football, which is, as you say, the monster, and it's a wonderful monster, the excitement, the week-by-week intensity of the Premier League, which I think fans thrill to. It dominates the waking existence of most players, and the Premier League is interested in its own financial and other interests, and the England team doesn't benefit from that sometimes. It's not going to change anytime soon. It's no good managers of the England team complaining about it. They have to do the best they can within the constraints that are imposed upon them. But the interesting thing is, even though the Premier League is a monster, the biggest day of any player's lives will be if they play in a knockout match for England. 82% of British men watched that match. 78% of women. That was the level of pressure that they were under. It was a genuine unifying national occasion. And that's why I'm excited by the culture that Southgate is developing. You know, he's talked about wanting players who are independent thinkers, who can express themselves. This is really important because football is certainly a highly tactical game, it's an organised game, but it is also a creative game. And players can't be creative when they're worried about fear, when they think back to Beckham getting sent off and being burned in effigy. If you've got that in the back of your mind, if you're thinking the next misplaced pass or the next tackle could lead to me being a national scapegoat, you're never going to deliver.
It comes back to the way he's asking him to play. You cannot play the way he's asking him to play with fear. It's impossible. Absolutely. You cannot take the ball. You cannot go high and press the ball away at Spain if you have fear. So he's almost saying, right, I believe in you. Go and play and show what good players you are. And the reason Rashford was in the positions he was, Sterling gets into positions to be able to run behind, is that instead of running back with their fullbacks that are pushed high, they're ready in zonal positions to go and press. That takes top coaching. That's top coaching. And then that goes into the psychological process of we are good enough to go in Spain and play our way, which I haven't seen in a long time.
He's also created a great bond, which wasn't perhaps, we've heard under previous England players that sometimes that they were a very, very good international side, but the differences with rivalry at the both clubs that they were at caused perhaps a problem at England level. That doesn't seem to be the case now. I have one of my staff working with England still, and with Gareth, and because the bond is really, really good. The players getting on with each other and building that camaraderie, if you like, which is what you look for at a club week in and week out. You get that when you're in the England camp, and then you're winning. Because you're all pulling in the same direction and pulling for one another, you know. I mean, they can make a massive difference.
Right, I'm going to push all three of you now then, because there were so many fabulous performances all over last night. If you had to give man of the match based on what somebody contributed to that victory, and it can be from where they came from, who would you go for?
Do you know, for me, who was absolutely outstanding, who hasn't got any credit from last night, was Chilwell. I thought he was absolutely outstanding.
Why? What did he do that was...
Because
he's a full-back as well, though.
I'm a full-back, full-back union, that's right. I'm not as good as him.
The union.
For a young player to come in, hardly any experience, play at left-back, he got forward, he defended fantastically well, he's calm in possession, he just slotted straight in. Him and Harry Winks, for me, stood out just for the fact that they went in and they played like they played 100 caps for England away at Spain. Absolutely outstanding.
Matthew?
Busquets. No, in all seriousness, I would probably go... I'd go with Sterling. I think he was under so much pressure. He'd had not just a lot of negativity about his performances at the World Cup, but he'd had a goal drought lasting quite a long time for England. People were saying in the build-up to the match, you've got to step up. The way he took the ball, the pass from Rashford for the first goal, he cushioned it to his right, seamlessly delivered. It was clinical, it was superb. And I think it is demonstrative of young players coming into the England team who now have the capacity to play to their potential under pressure rather than being inhibited by it.
Those two are outstanding. It's
so
so
great,
exciting.
The quality of that pass was the thing, though.
Brilliant.
The quality of the final third play was best I've seen it with England. That one, there's another one.
And
the quality of that ball, you know, if it were Messi playing it, we'd be right, you know, be raving over it. Like, I mean, Ross Barkley played it. It's a fantastic ball.
OK. You've gone Sterling.
I'd have Sterling myself.
Man of the match.
For similar reasons that he's scored 2 goals, and he was the biggest threat on the night, particularly behind a very, very slow Spanish defence. And I think the quality of the service he gave, the quality of the balls that were delivered to him in behind the opposition defence were outstanding. It's something I didn't expect on the night, to see that tactic work so well for England.
Well, we have had 1 or 2 tweets come in asking whether or not you still really think that Busquets is better than Eric Dier.
That's all I've heard so far tonight.
I'd say I really slipped up, I suppose, a bit, but it was on the day he was better than him. I mean, in career terms, he's not.
He's got a bit to do.
What I was sticking up for Eric Dier on the amount of stick he's been getting.
Yeah.
He's not good enough for England and all this. You know, he shouldn't be playing, and he you know what I mean? There's a lot of negative comments in the press I've read about.
Is that because he does a lot of the ugly stuff?
Of course it is. Simple. He plays it simple, and he sits in the right positions, and he sits and picks up the right. This is a great tackle, this, look.
I mean, it's early in the game.
I mean, that would have been... that set a great standard, I think, for England on the night.
Set the tone.
Look where he is.
Look at that tackle. But lovely.
Look where he is on the pitch. He's a defensive midfield player.
In all fairness, you're not allowed to do that now, sadly.
No.
You're not allowed to take the ball in the man like that anymore. But you know that's a shame, because it's as good a challenge at the start of a game that gets everybody in the right frame of mind, like a good pass would be, or a good header, or a good shot.
But for me, that summed up England's performance. He's a defensive midfield player. He's making a tackle in Spain's box. No fear.
Absolutely.
He's going to press the ball. And that was why they took Spain out of the rhythm. They're on the front foot. And when you play on the front foot with no fear, you start enjoying yourself. You start seeing Sterling, Rashford make those unbelievable forward runs, or straight line runs in transition. But that tackle, from a tactical point of view, sums up England's whole performance last night.
Are we seeing also, as well as the players maturing as a group, are we seeing tactically now Gareth Southgate maturing as England manager?
Both, yes, he's learning by every game. You can see that, as Liam said, by a change of tactics. When he saw Spain scored a goal, and then I'm going to have to protect this lead now. There's no point in me keep attacking, because I only need to stop conceding a goal, and I've won the game. If I go and continue attacking, Spain are not going to bother about defending anymore, whether they lose another goal or not, because they're losing. They're going to leave men up. Those men are not going to chase back. They're just going to try and get a hole or a pocket to use their ability to break through the England defence. So he shored it up and rightly so, and they won the game.